Hi all, and welcome to the first video of section 1. We are going to describe the complete procedure of installing Alfresco 4 using the bundle package on a Linux system. We assume that you have already downloaded the Alfresco installer bin file from Alfresco Download Center. Here, we'll find our Alfresco installer for Windows, Mac, and Linux distributions. On Windows, you should just double-click the exe file and follow the steps as described. On Mac, you should unpack the target.z file and open the app file. After that, the steps are the same as the Linux installation procedure. Word of notice is that this video will cover a quick installation process that could be different in case of a production environment. Change the permissions on the binary file as here, then execute the file from where you downloaded it using this command. As a Alfresco user, that should be already created in your environment. The setup installer should start right after the splash screen. Then, the steps are quite simple to follow. Select the language, and you should be prompted with an easy or advanced setup option. The next window will be the component selection, where you can choose which to install or not. The core of Alfresco bundle are Java, PostgreSQL, and OpenOffice, which is needed for Office documents previews and recommended for document transformations. The other options like SharePoint Protocol, Google Docs integration, and Web Quick Start are optional. Those options let you in order manage Microsoft Office documents directly in Alfresco, integrate a Google account and use Drive in sync with Alfresco, or yet quickly create business sites or blogs where you can publish content from Alfresco. The installation folder is where you want your Alfresco running. Usually, on Linux systems, it's in the opt directory. The database server parameters let you choose the port number of your DB. For PostgreSQL, the default one is 5432. Tomcat port configuration, locally, it's fine to stick with localhost or 127.0.0.1. The Tomcat port as default is 8080. All other parameters are fine. The Alfresco FTP ports allow you to connect your Alfresco instance through an FTP client, like FileZilla. The RMI port should remain the default one unless you have a good reason to change it. Then you'll be prompted with the admin password that will also be the password to connect your DB setup earlier. If you choose the SharePoint and the OpenOffice components, you should be prompted with other two windows asking you to confirm the ports for those to be listening. In the end, as last step, just click the Finish button and Alfresco should start automatically. You can now connect to your localhost 8080 share link in order to reach the login page. From Alfresco 4 onwards, the recommended interface is Share instead of Alfresco. Share is a complete and functional interface for an end user, while Alfresco Explorer has some more in-depth functionalities that could be used within borders of development environments. In the upcoming video, we see how to migrate the content of our Alfresco instance. Hi all, and welcome to the second video of this section, Migrating Content. Here, we are going to discuss some of the most common cases for which a content migration should be necessary, and how are we going to perform this task. First of all, we have to make sure we have two servers with two Alfresco instances installed on each. Both have to be the same version. The first one is the old repository, and the latter will be the new repository into which we'll migrate the old content. Then, we should verify if the Alfresco content can be split into one or more 4 GB ACPs. Those are Alfresco content package compressed files as a zip that Alfresco can export and import from one instance to another. We should point out that the use of the ACP files for migration is really limited and should be used only in few cases when the size of content to migrate is small. This is the most easy content migration to perform, as you could just select your content, export it, download the ACP file, and import the newly created file into the directory of your choice. The thing to remember is that the two Alfresco platforms must have the same version and number of model.xml files, Alfresco content model, If a change created one of those, you should copy those files. If you didn't change them, the migration should be just fine. Otherwise, there is the risk of data inconsistency. You should check for model.xml files inside shared extension model folder of both Alfresco instances and double-check if the version of those files is the same. In case our Alfresco repository is holding a big amount of data and we can't use the ACPs for migrating content, we should perform a cold migration. This is achieved by stopping your old Alfresco. Then, you just transfer the off data into the new Alfresco installation folder. This is easily accomplished by using FTP. Remember to copy the Tomcat shared classes Alfresco extension folder in case you made some customization to preserve changes. If you installed Alfresco from bundle, that should work just fine. Otherwise, you should also copy the database folder and paste it in the exact location of the second server. When the transfer is complete, all you have to do is simply verify the database configuration and paths inside the Alfresco global properties pointing to the right location, AlfData folder for indexes and database, and then try to start using your Alfresco instance. If you're using Lucene instead of Solr, you'd probably want to delete the folder Lucene indexes inside AlfData and rename the backup Lucene indexes into Lucene indexes, or eventually use the full recovery as we'll see right ahead. When the new Alfresco starts up, we have to verify Tomcat and Alfresco logs for strange messages, and we should check that our documents are correctly viewed in the new repository. Another suggestion is to rebuild the indexes with the option in Alfresco Global Properties Index Recovery Mode Full. But remember, it could take a long time, typically several hours for a medium-sized repo to several days for big repos, though some tuning can be made in order to speed up the process. This link explains some of the parameters. We'll talk in detail about those settings in the upcoming video. Obviously, this is only if you choose to use Lucene instead of Solr. Remember to set it back to auto value after the recovery is finished. The upcoming video will show how to configure the Alfresco indexes properly. Hi all, and welcome to the third video of this section, Configuring Lucene. Here we are going to introduce two different ways of implementing Lucene. This page of Alfresco Wiki is quite explanatory about how Lucene works. The default value of index subsystem in Alfresco 4 is Solr. Therefore, in order to enable Lucene, we should change the index subsystem name parameter in Alfresco global properties. The allowed values are Lucene and Solr. The main problem with Lucene search engine is its performance. Lucene can be quite unstable, and on large data can corrupt easily if not configured and maintained properly. Here are some important steps every Alfresco administrator should take before entering the production environment. Lucene indexer merger target index count. The default value is 5, but you should change the value to 8 to 10. Higher values mean slower search, but if you need to improve pre-index performance, that is not a problem for now. After finishing, you can always revert the change. Lucene indexer merge factor is 5, but you should set this value as high as possible. The higher the value of this property, the faster the response in memory indexing. On the other hand, the communication speed between disk and RAM is decreased. Lucene indexer batch size, this value prevents GC and memory leaks. Index tracking disabled in transaction indexing. This value prevents Lucene from indexing content nodes during operations like modify, update, create, and upload, but stores operations for later use when the system is not under pressure. Lucene max atomic transformation time. This value must be set to 0 to improve Lucene performance during bulk uploads. Those parameters should be only changed if the user has performance problems or specific needs. Right after restarting Alfresco and rebuilding the Lucene index, we can calculate the index corruption-related downtime being reduced by 80% at least. In an actual business case, a full index recovery of 80 GB database and 8 million files could take days, maybe weeks. We can reduce the timing to one night from 4 to 12 hours with those tweaks. That is a far better downtime in a production environment. In the upcoming video, we show how to configure Alfresco database. Hi all, and welcome to the fourth video of this section, configuring PostgreSQL. Alfresco is compatible with plenty of databases, from open source like MySQL to licenses like Oracle, Alfresco Enterprise only. In this video, we're using Alfresco with integrated PostgreSQL database. Here, we are going to help Alfresco administrators with managing and tweaking the database in Alfresco. As said, MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL, and Microsoft SQL are all compatible with Alfresco. The properties that we're going to see for PostgreSQL in this example should be confirmed with a DBA. A certified DBA is highly recommended to properly support a production environment, although it's usually a part-time role, but critical nonetheless. First of all, we must specify that the Alfresco default values are not suitable neither for testing nor production environment, so we should be doing some proper configuration before starting our repository. The database parameters can easily be found in Alfresco Global Properties inside the Tomcat Shared Classes path. This file contains all the database configurations we can work with, like connection parameters, JDBC driver, database name, user, port, and so on. One of the parameters we have to change is the DB pool max. Its value should be between 250 and 300 for starters. Another value that we should change is the Hibernate JDBC fetch size and set it to 150. This is necessary in order to try to prevent global collection overhead limits exceeded exception. We should look also to assign a value to DB pool validate query. In PostgreSQL, it should be select version. This property helps testing if the connections are still alive. Another step in a test environment is to check the PostgreSQL.conf file, located in the PostgreSQL directory inside your Tomcat ELF data path. Remember to remove the sample extension if there is any. We must assure that this string is present. This parameter allows password-authenticated connections via TCP/IP. This will help us access the database through our network without necessarily remotely connect to a Alfresco server. It's very important to comment this line once you go in production, because it creates a security issue. In some cases, depending on Linux system, we should also change the ownership of the directory tree to be owned by the user running the Alfresco server. To ensure the database stability and performance, we should tune and maintain the database. The upcoming video is going to show how to configure our server before entering the production. Hi all, and welcome to the fifth video of this section, Validation and Configuration on Day Zero. We are going to illustrate some of the most important notions that an Alfresco administrator must have before entering production. The environment validation is a set of actions that needs to be performed in order to have a supported platform and an easily replicable environment for testing and debugging purposes. On this link, we can see the supported operating systems for Alfresco 4. There are several steps to go through, like server hardware, OS configuration, third-party applications, and network characteristics. Let's start viewing specifically each of those. Server hardware, we should work on a CPU clock speed of at least 2.5 GHz, preferably on a 64-bit OS. On Linux systems, we should verify the number of open files handled by the system, at least 4K or more, depending on the sizing of the Alfresco instance. We should also check the port availability, Tomcat, FTP, and so on. As said in one of the previous videos, the FTP, in order to be enabled, must have Alfresco running as root. Another common trick is to configure Alfresco FTP on a port higher than 1024, then redirecting from the standard FTP port. We should check if the system has LibreOffice or OpenOffice, ImageMagick, and SWF tools installed, as these software are necessary to perform some actions in Alfresco like viewing, transforming, or updating documents. The last, but not the least important, is the network. So we should check DNS configuration in case we are going to cluster the environment, and database server connectivity, packet loss, and latency. So all these steps can be easily performed with a simple tool provided by the Alfresco community. It's a Java command line tool that we have to download, unzip, and then start from a terminal, like this. The output will be a terminal log that will fail or pass every single check that the EVT performs. Once done, we'll know what we have to change in our infrastructure. Then we should focus on the JVM. We should change the default values because those are not suitable for production environment. In our fresco.sh file, we should modify or add, if there is not Java ops line, the following. This line is suitable for a server with at least 4 GB RAM. Feel free to modify those values depending on your hardware. This piece of code will tune up the Tomcat JVM in order to boost the system overall performance. Ideally, a system should have at least 2 or more GB RAM to assign to the JVM. If these parameters are not set properly, usually the server will fail on startup, causing firmgen or overheat errors, along with out-of-memory log messages. Even if the server is successful on startup, it will probably not work correctly, producing, as a result, downtimes and freezes. Once the server is started, in order to see if the ImageMagick and OpenOffice plugins are working properly, we should try to open a document in Alfresco. An Office document and an image just to be sure, and check the thumbnail and the preview of those files. After restarting Alfresco, we should have a valid environment and a properly configured repository to work with. The next section is about customizing Alfresco, so the upcoming video will explain how to override the login page. Hi all, and welcome to the first video of section 2. We are going to describe how to deploy a custom login page for our Alfresco instance. First of all, we'll need the Alfresco SDK package. We can download a community version from here, or from our Alfresco Enterprise account download section. We'll have to extract the SDK and navigate to Samples, Custom Login, Web, JSP extension directory. There, we'll find the login JSP file. We should copy the JSP file to our JSP extension folder. Then, we should open the login JSP file with a text editor and start applying any changes we want. For example, we could change the background image with a custom one, or change the Alfresco logo in the login form. There are other 2 files related to our custom login page. One is the web client properties file using internationalization strings in our JSP files. We should see the current version property that is embedded in our login JSP file. The other file is the web client config custom XML. We should rename the sample file in our Tomcat shared classes extension directory to XML and add in the Alfresco config tag this piece of code. This will assure us that Alfresco will pick up the correct custom login file. After applying changes to our login JSP file, we should restart Alfresco and open the browser. We should see a brand new login page awaiting for us. Hi all, and welcome to the second video of this section, Customizing Alfresco Explorer. We are going to see how we can extend some of the Alfresco Explorer functions. Although from Alfresco 4 onwards we should using only share, the Explorer interface offers some interesting actions that are still much more simple and quicker than the share platform. Alfresco Explorer is still useful for administrators because it has some features that are not available in share yet. We can customize the Explorer configuration items through a simple XML file, the web client config custom XML. We've seen that file in the previous video. So now we're going to change some of the properties located there. We should already have the XML file deployed in our Tomcat shared classes extension path, and if not, just rename the sample file. It's recommended always to use the shared folder to customize Alfresco and share instead of modifying the WAR of the exploded WAR, just because the WAR files, in case of updates, overrides everything in it. If you want to know a list of most important properties configurations, you could simply get the URL. The noteworthy properties in Alfresco are user group admin, if we want to protect our group administration for Alfresco, 0-byte file upload, if we want to block every upload that has attached an empty file, default home space path, this is useful if we want our user home to be always in a certain directory, for example our customer path, and search max results. With this setting we can block the search to a limited number, in order to prevent memory problems, and search minimum, where we can set a minimum number of characters for a search to be valid. Despite these options, the Web Client Config Custom allows us to change almost every single detail in Alfresco Explorer. We could change icons just using this piece of code. This, for example, allows us to change the folder icon in our Alfresco Explorer instance. This single file is a powerful instrument to customize our Alfresco Explorer with some nice quirks. We could list only the node types we want with content types, or set a custom email that will appear when Alfresco will send email to users. So here we're going to test some of the features we changed before, like the search limitations or our file upload size limitations. We must restart Alfresco and then log in as usual. Here we'll see that we aren't allowed to search the strings that have less than 3 characters, and we aren't able to upload an empty file. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to add custom AMP packages into Alfresco. Hi all, and welcome to the third video of this section, adding custom AMP packages to Alfresco. We're going to talk about AMP files. AMP stands for Alfresco Module Package. It's a bundle of code used for extending Alfresco core functionalities. Alfresco Bundle Install comes with a tool, MMT, stands for Module Management Tool, used for installing AMPs in Alfresco. This is the best way to add new features in Alfresco, so today we are going to see how to install an open source AMP package. First of all, we need the AMP file. For demonstration purposes, we'll use this. This package extends some essential Alfresco functions, focusing on working with PDF files. After this installation, we'll be able to transform, sign electronically, merge, watermark, or split every single PDF from within the Alfresco web client. Once downloaded, we need to copy the AMP file inside the Alfresco AMPs directory for Alfresco Explorer and into Alfresco AMPs share for Alfresco Share. Then we just move to Alfresco bin directory where we find the sh and bat files. Just launch it with double-click on Windows or from terminal in Linux. This will start the MMT tool that will ask for a confirmation about this action, and then will back up the Alfresco and share WAR files. Then it will apply the new AMPs and redeploy the WARs. The WAR files will be completely new files created from the old ones with the new AMP inside. Once Alfresco successfully restarts, we should open a PDF file and try to execute a new action against the document. There, we'll find a whole new set of options like merge, watermark, insert at page, and so on. There are a whole bunch of AMP files offered by the community, so you should try to install some of the packages. AMPs are nothing else than zip files with a default structure that we can use, and usually those packages contain jar files or some custom libraries. We must remember those AMPs are offered by the community, so before going in production, it should pass a strict quality test. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to add a custom library in Alfresco. Hi all, and welcome to the fourth video of this section, adding custom libraries. Today, we're going to learn how to deploy a custom library in Alfresco. In the previous section, we saw how to deploy an AMP file. Now, we're going to talk about jars. Alfresco 4 allows us to apply overrides by simply deploying jars in our Alfresco instance. For demonstration purposes, we're going to use an already built jar file, the execute script action for Alfresco 4. This library allows us to use the execute script action inside Alfresco Share without switching back to Explorer. Now we have the jar file, all we have to do is deploy the jar file inside the Tomcat shared lib directory. Probably the lib folder doesn't exist, so we should create it. Now Alfresco will pick this library the first time it starts. But we need to tell Alfresco Share what to do with this library, so we need to open the share config custom XML. This file is located inside the Share installation in Tomcat Shared Classes Alfresco Web Extension. There, we should add this piece of code. As you can see, we have a tag action groups. This is a set of nodes within Alfresco that has similar characteristics, like all folder, so the action group tag is used to apply a specific characteristic to an action group. This will allow us to see our new run library in action. Now we can restart Alfresco and log in into Share. We have still Alfresco Explorer under the hood, but Share is actually on top of the platform with a better user experience, and as mentioned above, we're using a custom action available in Explorer that will be available in Share too after this tutorial. So now you know how to add an AMP and how to add a jar library. What is the best choice? The jar is more of a development feature. Once in a production environment, you should think about packaging that library and make it still in the WAR file. Now open a document and we see a new option in the menu called Execute Action. In the upcoming video, we'll learn how to add a Java-backed web script. Hi all, and welcome to the fifth video of this section, adding Java-backed web scripts to Alfresco. So, this chapter is about coding, so a little bit of Java knowledge will help. Web scripts allow you to build custom URL and HTTP accessible content management web services, or access, manage and modify content via RESTful API. Usually, a web script is formed by an XML descriptor, a JavaScript controller, and not necessarily a free market template file. But occasionally, we can build a JavaScript-only web script that allows us to be called from another service or web service. Now we need to build a Java class that we want to deploy in Alfresco. In order to accomplish this, we'll attach the sample code of class I've already written. This class uses Alfresco APIs to create a zip file from a selection of documents. Before compiling, we should make sure that we have the Alfresco embedded lib file on class path. Just open your build path windows on the IDE project and add the SDK Alfresco embedded you should have downloaded before. Once compiled, we should build a jar file and copy it to the Tomcat shared lib. Once done, we should create a web script that uses the Java code. In order to accomplish that, we should create a file called create-zip-post-desk-xml inside a path Tomcat, shared, classes, Alfresco, templates, web scripts, org, pack, Alfresco course. Obviously, the org pack Alfresco course should reflect your own package naming convention. After restarting Alfresco, we should invoke the script path through general create zip with the parameters as the desk XML is being written. So, in order to use the script, as it's only a post web script, we could try using a REST console from Chrome to call it with the correct parameters, and we should be able to receive back a zip file with the document and its properties. In the next section, we'll talk about automation and how to make Alfresco execute actions on its own. Hi all, and welcome to the first video of section 3. We are going to describe how to create an action and how to schedule it in Alfresco. We need a custom action file. We can both use Java for a backend script or JavaScript. In this case, we're covering the JavaScript method, so we are going to create an example script.js. Briefly, every Alfresco node has metadata that are properties of the node itself. The script is an example where, when we execute it, Alfresco is going to pick every file in repository with test.pdf name and change the author metadata property value. JavaScript scripts use the root object exposed by Alfresco, so we are able to create any kind of script or action we need for our production environment, from deleting nodes to creating folders or sending automatic emails. Then, we'll need a custom action context file. We can find an example in Alfresco Tomcat shared classes Alfresco extension path called scheduled action services context.xml. There, we'll find an action model factory bean referring to scheduled action class, necessary in order to register a scheduled action. Then, we have to create a run script action bean that is our action definition bean, and where we point to our script file. and in the end, our unscript bin, which declares how the schedule will be managed. There, we should change the property cron expression from default value to 0, 0/1, asterisk, 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 question mark. For more about cron expressions, visit the wiki page. Just remove the sample extension and change it as it follows. Refer to slide 3 for this, as remarker escaping convention is prone to error with different Alfresco versions. Now we have to deploy the context file in the Alfresco extension path, and then restart our instance with alfresco.shstop and alfresco.shstart shell commands for Linux environments, or simply through the Start menu and then the options Stop Alfresco Server and Start Alfresco Server for Windows environments. Upload the JavaScript file in Alfresco inside the Data Dictionary Scripts folder according to our bin configuration. In our runscript bin configuration, we will change the values of our action will be triggered every minute once Alfresco starts. Then, we shall upload a PDF file named test.pdf in order for our script to work. All we have to do is wait, and we'll see that our test.pdf author property will be changed by our script automatically. The action will be executed every minute, looking for every file with name test.pdf in repository and setting the author property value for those files. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to add some content rules to our Alfresco instance. Hi all, and welcome to the second video of section 3. We're going to introduce Alfresco business rules. This slide explains what are content rules in Alfresco and how to use them. So, for demonstration purposes, we are going to assume that we want to move documents from upload area to different folders depending on their MIME type. Now, we're going to create a folder called upload and add a rule to it. We have to configure a condition when we want the rule to be triggered. In our example, it would be content of MIME type. Then we have to select Adopt PDF document. Then, in the next screen, we'll set the move parameter. And the folder where we want to move all those PDF files, of course. At this point, all we have to do is set a name for our action and when we want the rule to be executed, or node creation, for example. We can also set some additional parameters like executing the rule in background, disable rule, or apply the rule to subspaces. Just click Next. Now we can see the last screen, where Alfresco tells us the summary of our content rule and all the options we've selected. After we click the Finish button, we'll have our custom rule set up. Now, all we have to do is upload a PDF document in our Upload folder, and we'll see the document is being moved to folder which we have selected during rule creation. The rule will still apply even for files uploaded via Share, CIFS, WebDAV, or CMIS. We could also apply a schedule and execute script action seen in the previous video. In the upcoming video, we'll talk about scheduling email to be sent from an Alfresco instance. Hi all, and welcome to the third video of section 3. We are going to introduce the email feature in Alfresco. Alfresco includes inbound and outbound email subsystems. For purpose of this video is to cover the outbound email configuration. First of all, we have to configure the SMTP outbound. So we have to add an SMTP server parameters in our Alfresco properties file. In order to check if everything is set up correctly, we could just restart Alfresco and check if we received an email when the server starts. We can create email templates and then use those to send full HTML featured email to users when something happens in our repository. So open your favorite text editor and paste this code and save it with html.ftl extension. Free marker syntax is very similar to HTML, with the exception of using inline variables. So the variables will be exposed as the value of the particular variable. Where we have document.name, we'll have the node file name. For more about free marker syntax, please refer to the link. Now we have to import our FTL file inside data dictionary email templates, notify email templates as plain text. Worth of mentioning is that the user has to have read-write on the template, or any operation that needs that template could fail. Now we have to go back to our previously created content rule and add an action on newly created PDF document condition. Select the user, with a valid email of course, and select the custom template just created. Then, confirm the content rule creation. In order to test the new email feature, all we have to do is add another PDF in our upload directory. After uploading our PDF document, we should be able to see in our inbox an email from Alfresco telling us that a new document is being added to the repository. In the upcoming video, we see how to schedule Alfresco start and stop, and how to do a hot and cold backup. Hi all, and welcome to the fourth video of this section. Today, we're going to learn how to backup and how to automatically restart Alfresco. When scheduling backup systems in a production environment, where server snapshots or cold backups are in use, we could need our backup scripts to stop and start Alfresco. In order to achieve this, we have to create batch files as our slides. All we have to do is insert our crontab command 022 **** home alfresco batch alfresco stop.sh and then 006 **** home alfresco batch alfresco start.sh. That is going to stop Alfresco at 22 o'clock and start it at 6 o'clock every day. One of the backup methods allows us to backup an Alfresco instance simply by copying specific folders. Some folders can be backed up when Alfresco is running, and some others can't. In AlfData, we'll find a PostgreSQL that must be backed up when Alfresco is down. On the other hand, Content Store can be copied while Alfresco is running. So in order to achieve a cold backup, we have to follow these steps, easily configured via crontab to make this copy automatically, and to perform a hot backup, we should follow these steps. During a hot backup, we have to backup the folder backup Lucene indexes, what is created every night at 2 AM if you use Lucene, and should be restored and renamed as Lucene indexes. The important thing is that the folder Lucene indexes shouldn't be backupped during a hot backup in order to preserve index integrity. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to use the crontab in order to easily manage Alfresco and your server. Hi all, and welcome to the fifth video of this section. In the previous sections, we talked about custom actions and how to schedule those. Well, now we're going to master crontab for automation purposes. So, in our custom action scheduler script, we've seen the property cron expression. We could use some examples to modify this expression, so we could use some of these. If we want to use cron in a Linux environment for automatically start and stop Alfresco, as we saw in the previous video, all we have to do is open a terminal and digit crontab-e. Then, we should write a crontab expression like this. This will allow us to create a scheduled action that will execute our Alfresco start shell script. Crontab is a powerful instrument in Alfresco and in Linux environment. This scheduler helps system administrators to schedule and manage actions otherwise difficult to execute: backup copies, machine reboots, and application restarts. In the next section, we will see how to implement some basic and advanced web script. Hi all, and welcome to the first video of section 4. We are going to describe how to create a simple web script in our Alfresco repository. Alfresco web scripts are a simple service bound to an URI which responds to an HTTP methods. We can construct data representation web scripts. Data web scripts encapsulate access and modification of content and data held in the repository, while presentation web scripts allow you to build user interfaces. In this demonstration, we'll create a simple document table web script, which will expose to the user a simple table with some documents found in a directory with custom property filled in. First of all, we need to create a web script descriptor. The XML file has different tags enclosed in a web script tag. There are short name and description tags used to give a name to the web script. URL tag specifies what relative path will the web script have. Authentication tag determines what kind of users can access that particular web script. We can also specify the default format response of the web script. According to the naming convention, we have to save the file with this format, scriptname.get.desk.xml, where script name is the web script name, get is the method, desk is the web script descriptor file, and XML is the file format. Then we shall create a free marker template. The naming convention is always the same, where instead of desk, we must put HTML with FTL extension. This tells Alfresco our web script is a free marker template file with an HTML output. We can have different outputs with web scripts like XML, JSON, HTML, etc. Here, we're focusing on creating a simple HTML web script. As mentioned in the previous video, FreeMarker and HTML are very similar, where FreeMarker can use variables and their values together with script code in line. FreeMarker code is specified with hash, so in FTL file, if we want to use a if statement, we'll write something like this. The name pattern of the html.ftl file must reflect the descriptor file name. Even if in this example we're using a JavaScript file for our web scripts, we can create web scripts without controllers, so they're optional. We should paste this code and then we're ready to test it. Simply upload all three files in a directory, say test, inside the web script extension folder inside data dictionary. It's recommended to use this path for development purposes only, otherwise web script files should be placed in Tomcat shared classes. Then we shall refresh web scripts through this URL. It's recommended to use WCS instead of the most common service, just because if you start building more complex web scripts or make calls between them, you could get some authentication problems. Now we can test our web script. If we connect to our test documents URL in Alfresco, so Alfresco WCS test script, we should be able to see a list of rows corresponding to documents of our controller Lucene result set. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to create some more advanced scripts. Hi all, and welcome to the second video of section 4. In this demonstration, we'll see how to extend some of the web script functionalities in Alfresco. We could use a web script to interrogate Alfresco through CMIS or Lucene to give us the result set of a query. So we are going to create a data web script that accepts parameters. Now we should create a controller that acts when the web script is called with the correct parameters. Here we could use a simple href link to point to the unique document in our repository. We could use this web script to populate our external application, or even another web script in Alfresco simply calling with the get method the URL. In order to use our web script, Alfresco will prompt us with a user password field. We should provide this, or we could simply append a ticket at the end of the URL. So just call with the get method, and then append the second row of the slide at the end of your web script. That should grant you access without prompt. Different tickets will be generated each time you call the authentication script, so remember to insert the updated ticket value when calling your web script. We can test the script simply calling the URL with the correct parameters and different outputs, and if Alfresco finds a document with those values, we will see a simple link to the document. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to receive a JSON output from a web script. Hi all, and welcome to the third video of section 4. In this video, we'll see how to use JSON in a web script implementation. JSON will help us manage, access, and use structured data exposed by Alfresco in our applications. Alfresco web scripts offer multiple response formats, and every client can access the default one, or explicitly ask for a specific response. In the Data Dictionary Web Scripts extension folder, create a free marker template with a simple line of code and the XML descriptor file. Once again, refresh the web script service through Alfresco service URL. Then, simply open a terminal and digit this and see the response. You should get exactly this output, formatted as JSON. We could use JSON to populate data tables, as in this example, we use Kendo-UI and jQuery to populate a table using Alfresco APIs. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to dynamically configure WebScript using XML configuration files. Hi all, and welcome to the fourth video of section 4. We'll learn how to configure dynamically our web scripts using simple configuration files. This helps writing dynamic and reusable code, simply changing some parameters. We should navigate to web scripts extension folder inside Data Dictionary as usual. There, we should create a folder that will represent the top-level package structure of our web script. Inside this folder, we should create these files, and then refresh the services through Alfresco service index. Configuration.get.config.xml has the standard naming convention defined by WebScript framework. So the name should always be as this. So this config file will simply extract the number of times to repeat the greeting from the configuration XML and place the value into the WebScript model with the same name, repeat. If we try to reach the WebScript through curl in terminal, we should be able to see the WebScript response as hello repeated 3 times. Changing value of repeat tag in configuration.get.config.xml file, we can simply alter the configuration of a WebScript and its behavior. In the upcoming video, we see how to add some CSS styling to our templates. Hi all, and welcome to the 5th video of section 4. In this demonstration, we see how to customize our templates with some injected JavaScripts or linking CSS resource files. This helps building custom user interfaces on top of Alfresco, like Share. We'll talk about it in the last part of this course. We'll style our buttons in Google style using an open source framework that is attached with example files in this video. We should start creating a simple menu bar in our web script. This will be our HTML FTL output. Now, we should import JavaScript files and link CSS resources in order to use this framework. We must remember that FTL is like an HTML file, so we can use every framework simply by injecting it inside the HTML code. In this example, we are using jQuery libraries and CSS3 buttons. This will help us obtain a result much more user-friendly. As we saw in the previous step, we can link those buttons to everything we like, another web script using relative paths or external resources, or injected JavaScript functions. Once we've refreshed WebScript services, we should be able to connect to our web script and see the result. This is the final output after working around with the imported CSS. In the upcoming section, we'll talk about Alfresco integration. Hi all, and welcome to the first video of section 5. In this video, we'll see how to implement and use some of Alfresco web services. Alfresco provides the following set of web services. With those services, we can easily access through every client language we want every remote repository. We will be focusing our attention on Java. Before we can communicate with any Alfresco web service, we must authenticate the current user by starting a session. This is a method that returns a ticket from a specific and custom platform class. These are the examples that we could use to start using Alfresco web services. The method start session is provided with a username and password and, if authentication is successful, returns a ticket. This ticket can then be used when calling other web service methods. Once we achieve to create this method, we can start a session and call other web services. From here, it's only a matter of what we want to achieve. Usually we would execute query against the repository or manipulate content, but we could manage action and rules through simple web services calls. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to use servlets in order to achieve those actions. Hi all, and welcome to the second video of section 5. In this video, we'll learn how to create a Java servlet and use it to get nodes from an Alfresco repository. First, we'll need a web script that exposes us an URL with parameter to get a node from Alfresco. Now, we can create a Java servlet. With this piece of code, after authenticating and getting an Alfresco ticket, which we saw in the previous video, we can pass all the parameters through our servlet to the exposed web script that will return to us an HTML or XML result set. Remember to append the authentication ticket as seen in one of the previous videos. We should also remember to configure our servlet and map it to our URL in our web application. We can achieve this modifying our web.xml file. Now, if we recall through our application the URL of our servlet and passing those parameters, we should see an XML result that we can parse and use for our purposes. Obviously, we can achieve anything we want, from editing and uploading documents to executing business rules. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to configure Alfresco to use external authentication subsystems. Hi all, and welcome to the third video of section 5. In this video, we'll see how to configure Alfresco to use external authentication subsystems. The entire configuration resides, as usual, in Alfresco global properties. So, the first thing to achieve is the authentication chain. Suppose we want to use Alfresco built-in authentication, but we would like to use Active Directory through SSO as primary authentication system. We should use something like this. Authentication.chain is the authentication subsystem order Alfresco will try to use when a login request is made. ntlm.authentication.sso.enabled enables the SSO login without prompting for credentials. In the example, the system will first try to log in through SSO without asking the password, then, if no match is found, will try to prompt us, and then, in order, we'll check our credentials through AD first and Alfresco default authentication at last. Here is a detailed table of every Alfresco's authentication subsystem type. So, let's try a business case of an LDAP authentication system. Here, we are going to tell Alfresco to use first its own authentication system, then the AD one. We don't want SSO, so it's set to false. All the other parameters are domain restricted, as URL of the naming provider, admin usernames, and so on. Then, all we have to do is restart Alfresco, and we have a perfectly integrated repository with our domain policy authentication. We can also debug through log4j and this simple command our authentication subsystems, just in case we should add the string in Alfresco global properties as well. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to connect Alfresco share to a remote repository. Hi all, and welcome to the fourth video of section 5. This section describes how to configure Alfresco share to use an external SSO. Alfresco share can be configured to accept a username from an HTTP header provided by an external authentication system. Open the share web extension directory. Copy or rename the share config custom.xml.sample to be called share config custom.xml. Uncomment both the config evaluator string compare and the condition remote sections. Change the connector used by the endpoint in the second section to use Alfresco header rather than the Alfresco cookie. Set the name of the header used by the external SSO in the user header element of the Alfresco header connector. To configure both share and the Alfresco repository to use the same HTTP header value, the external authentication proxy header property needs to be set to the same value as the user header value. Now, we can restart Alfresco. We should remember, though, that activating external authentication makes Alfresco accept external authentication tokens. So make sure that no untrusted direct access to Alfresco's HTTP port is allowed. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to integrate Google Docs with Share. Hi all, and welcome to the fifth and last video of section 5. In this demonstration, we see how to integrate Google Docs with Share in order to share and keep synced your Alfresco files through Google systems. The two configuration files that require modification are Share config custom XML and Google Docs properties. In Share config custom, ensure that you have the Google editable aspect declared, and look also for the Google Docs section of the file and ensure that you have the enable option set to true, although at the moment of when this video was produced, current Alfresco version enables Google Docs by default. Here we should set enable to true and fill our account information. Otherwise, Alfresco will prompt us with credential form in Share interface. In the Share dashboard, let's navigate to the site link on top. Click on Create Content link, and then select the Google Docs document item. Fill out the document details and then save the content item. In the Details page of our newly created item, we should see Edit in Google Docs option. If we click there, we should be prompted with a Google Docs link. In order to edit the document in Google Docs, we should click on the link and then save the item. Then, we should return to Alfresco Share Details page and click on Save in Alfresco under Actions. This was the last video of Section 5. In the upcoming section, we'll talk about Alfresco and Cloud. Hi all, and welcome to the first video of Section 6. This section is about Alfresco and Cloud, altogether with a new set of utilities that Alfresco 4 offers. In this video, we'll see how to obtain a developer API key in order to start developing against Alfresco public APIs. Those APIs enable you to persist content to Alfresco in the cloud. It consists of two parts: CMIS for creating, querying, updating and deleting nodes, and Alfresco REST calls for Alfresco functionalities that CMIS doesn't cover. First of all, we'll need to verify our email address. In order to do so, we'll need to click on Register for the Cloud API blue button. We should be prompted with a form that we have to compile with all the requested information and accept the terms and conditions. We shall receive a confirmation email. After confirming our email, we'll be able to sign in as developers to Alfresco Cloud. After we sign in through developer.alfresco.com, we'll be prompted with a new dashboard where we can manage our authentication and our API keys along with our application. If we go in our Application section, we can add a brand new application. We shall see a new pop-up window. So in this example, I'll be using a test application in Java with Alfresco public API. What we can end up doing is making calls like this against Alfresco public API. Once we have our authentication key set up, we can start making calls against the API. We can call a method on the CMIS ATOM pub REST API, for example, by issuing an authenticated HTTP request with an URL, as just said. With CMIS 1.1 release, cmis.alfresco.com now has two more formats, JSON or JSONP. To start, all you have to do is download a CMIS client, like OpenCMIS or CMIS lib, and pass in the authorization header. From here, it's all up to you. For further information about Alfresco public API, here is the online documentation link. In the upcoming video, we see how to use the Alfresco Cloud Platform. Hi all, and welcome to the second video of Section 6. In this video, we see some of the features of Alfresco Cloud Platform. If you haven't done it already, you should sign up for free with your business mail. The free account gives us 10 GB quota. Why business? I'll explain it in a second. After signing up, we can go to my.alfresco.com and log in. We'll be prompted with a classic Share dashboard. First thing first, you see a new icon in the top right. It's your network. That's why we should use a business mail. Alfresco Cloud will automatically create a new business network with our domain, so every user that signs up with the same business email will be invited in our network. Everything else is pretty much the same as the new Alfresco share. We can invite people to our business site. We can manage content in our document library, start collaborative tasks, and so on. We can even connect our Google Apps mail and create Google Docs documents. It's a great start in order to have a great cloud-connected platform, basically for free with 10 GB space usage. In the upcoming video, we see how to access and edit content through CMIS or web dev. Hi all, and welcome to the third video of section 6. In this video, we'll see how to access and edit content through CMIS or web dev. We can use CMIS to integrate our application with Alfresco. CMIS is a standard protocol, so it offers a predefined core set of services of a typical CMS. For better understanding CMIS, though, we should spend a couple of words about it. CMIS search works with a SQL-like query language, includes these services. To start using CMIS, we can access the CMIS browser in every Alfresco instance through Alfresco service CMIS index URL or otherwise using curl through command line. If we want to list all the available types in a repository, we could use the fourth line of code up to slide 14. It will return an XML with the requested information. In order to execute a query, we have to bind with our CMIS call an XML file with the query in it. To learn more about CMIS and its functionalities, you should see the section 7. It covers almost everything about CMIS services and provides some great examples of CMIS usage. Web dev mapping, on the other hand, is far more simple to achieve. All we have to do is log in on this URL, or otherwise map it like a network drive. Alfresco then exposes its internal document library as a file system. CMIS in the end is usually used in Windows Alfresco installations. Linux Alfresco setup must be run using root user account in order to bind the privileged port, TCP or UDP. You could always run it as a non-root user and that user firewall forwarding to those ports. Those are the settings for CMIS to configure with Alfresco global properties. Those are great methods to connect and modify your Alfresco instance through external applications, in a business network or through a collaborative cloud platform. In the upcoming video, we see how to integrate external productivity apps with Alfresco. Hi all, and welcome to the fourth video of section 6. This section describes how to integrate external applications with Alfresco. Applications that use Alfresco can use a set of common patterns to access content. The most common protocols are SOAP or RESTful web services, such as AtomPub. In this video, we'll use the article pattern to show how to achieve an integration with Alfresco. An article pattern is a single content object. It may be a featured document or a piece of text. The article is retrieved from the repository with a singleton query. Let's say we have a serve site where we want to include a static HTML file created using the article XSD-serve framework file. This creates the file example.html within the repository to root content news, which is then deployed to root content news. XSD file is an XML schema that allows to validate the elements according to XSD descriptions. It allows also to extract the final structure of objects with attributes. The HTML import is done by Surf component, however, we need to configure Surf using Spring to look into the deployed directory for the static content and web script. Once this is configured, components can access static content. The component in our site homepage is site data components page.main.index.xml and looks like this. This is useful when we want to access content from Alfresco when we are creating our website or an application built on top of Alfresco. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to publish content to new social media channels. Hi all, and welcome to the fifth and last video of section 6. In this video, we'll talk about Alfresco and new social media channels. There are a full set of new features in Alfresco 4 connected to social content. We can publish content, view the publishing history, develop new type of publishing channels, and many more. So, for starters, we must create a new channel. In the admin console, click Channel Manager. On a new installation, there shouldn't exist any channel. Click New and then select the required channel type. Out of the box we have Facebook, Flickr, LinkedIn, SlideShare, Twitter and YouTube. Let's say we want to create a LinkedIn channel. We'll see the authorization page from LinkedIn. Enter your credentials and then sign in. We should see the authorized list of applications in our LinkedIn profile. Now, in Channel Manager page, we'll see the newly created LinkedIn channel. Permissions in channel can be granted to user and groups for each publishing channels. Those can be set by inherited or locally set permissions. From Channels Management, we should locate the channel we wish to change the permissions. Click Permissions and modify what you want to change. One thing to have in mind is that the Channel Manager is only available through a localhost connection, so you have to log in your server locally. This section helps you with managing social content publishing and allows you to configure properly your Alfresco instance. This was the last video of the section 6. In the upcoming section, we'll talk deeply about CMIS. Hi all, and welcome to the first video of section 7. This section is about more profound concepts of CMIS and how Alfresco uses them. In the previous section, we've already talked about CMIS and its services. Now, we're going to learn how to implement a piece of code using CMIS syntax. The CMIS is an open standard that allows different CMS platforms to interoperate over the Internet. It defines an abstraction layer of controlling diverse document management systems and repositories using web protocols. It uses query language based on the SQL92 select statement. To support this, a read-only relational view of the CMIS data model is also defined. The CMIS query language specification for Alfresco 4 is available on this link. One of the important things to remember is that most part of the CMIS query language are supported by Alfresco, except join between types. The CMIS query is made up of a mandatory select clause, a mandatory from clause, an optional where clause, and an optional order by clause. The CMIS query language does not support group by or having. The object types are those in the list of the slide, although the policy and relationship objects cannot be used in Alfresco-related CMIS queries. So, for starters, we can build some CMIS queries, as this slide. Alfresco supports a variety of additional parameters allowing us to build more complex queries. In the previous section, we talked about curl and how to access a CMIS service in Alfresco repository. We can use the same method and test some of these queries against your repository, in alternative to www.alfresco.com/CMIS. CMIS is a powerful tool used for Alfresco integration with other applications, allowing the use of one single service to access multiple platforms. In the upcoming video, we'll use some of the CMIS services to build a simple Java method. Hi all, and welcome to the second video of section 7. In this video, we'll create a simple Java class that allows us to use one of CMIS services in Alfresco 4. In the previous section, we saw a full list of Alfresco CMIS services. In this tutorial, we'll use one of the most common one, the navigation services. It allows us to navigate the repository by accessing the folder tree. Doing so, we're able to get children and parents of an object. In order to start, we need to download Apache Chemistry OpenCMIS. We'll use this collection of libraries to use CMIS services. The Alfresco CMIS ATOM-PUB binding is implemented as a series of Alfresco web scripts and support all web script capabilities such as authentication, content negotiation, and tunneling. This binding is fully described in the CMIS 1.0 CS01 specification, as well as the Alfresco reference documentation for the CMIS AtomPub web script. To get started, the Alfresco AtomPub service document is available from any install Alfresco content repository at Alfresco CMIS Atom. Open your favorite Java IDE, in this case Eclipse, and create a new Java project and a new Java class. Remember to configure correctly the build path and import the OpenCMIS libraries. Now, insert this code in your class, with your local parameters, of course. If you prefer, you can use public Alfresco CMIS services as seen before. Now, we should see something like this, as we have listed our root folder company home from our Alfresco instance. This is a simple example of using CMIS navigation service. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to use Alfresco OpenCMIS extension and its aspect management. Hi all, and welcome to the third video of section 7. In this video, we'll see how to use Alfresco OpenCMIS extension. In Alfresco, aspects can be exposed through the CMIS bindings. CMIS spec does not define any support for aspect, although the recently released CMIS 1.1 does support them as secondary types. At the time this course is written, they are not yet fully implemented. Alfresco uses the CMIS extension mechanism to allow the query, read and write of aspects and their associated properties. Alfresco aspects are queried as if they are tables and joined to types by object ID. Each aspect in Alfresco is mapped to a policy type definition. The mapping of aspect to type definition is exactly the same as class to type definition. Although each aspect is represented as a policy, they are not creatable, and therefore cannot be applied to objects via CMIS policy services. The aspects CM referenceable, CM auditable, and CM versionable are not mapped to policies, as they are already mapped to native document folder properties defined in the CMIS domain model. All objects returned via CMIS bindings are decorated with aspects extension, as this piece of code. Using the AtomPub binding, we can create update requests. Managing Alfresco aspects via CMIS bindings allows us to edit or create content with custom properties through our custom application. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to create a document with an aspect. Hi all, and welcome to the fourth video of section 7. This section helps us understand developing with CMIS. We'll create a simple Java class that will create a document and add an aspect to the node in our local Alfresco repository. As in the previous video, we need an IDE and our Java project's build path linked with Apache OpenCMIS libraries. We can reuse the Java project we created in the video number 2 of this section. Then, we add this piece of code. The Alfresco OpenCMIS extension allows us to use a comma-separated list of type IDs in the object type ID property. The first type ID must be the object type ID. The following type IDs must be the aspects type IDs, even more than one. This code will create a document without content in the root folder, with the titled aspect applied and the description property value my document. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to build some more complex CMIS queries. Hi all, and welcome to the fifth and last video of section 7. As we talked only about CMIS in this section, we should understand how this service works, so now we're going to build something more complex than a simple select query. The scope of this tutorial is to build a string which will contain the HTTP URL we're going to call against a CMIS service in our Alfresco repository. The code is a part of a more complex web application, but the builder should be fine to understand this part. We're going to create a private static string that will return us a string, and we use it in an HTTP call against a repository. We have an XML config file describing all of the parameters, and we're going to use them in our method. The where, select, doctype, aspects, and date values are going to be populated dynamically depending on what we'll call our method. We're going to log our CMIS query builder output, of course. This is our log after passing some of the parameters to our method. This section hopefully helps you mastering some of the common CMIS use cases in order to start building your own application on top of Alfresco. This was the last video of the section 7. In the upcoming section, we talked about Alfresco share customization. Hi all, and welcome to the first video of section 8. This tutorial explains how to create and deploy some extra content to a user dashboard page in Alfresco Share. Alfresco Share provides a rich web-based collaboration environment for managing documents, wiki content, blogs, and more. Share leverages the Alfresco repository to provide content services and utilizes the Alfresco Surf platform to provide the underlying presentation framework. A number of options are available to developers and administrators wishing to customize Alfresco Share to better fit into their environment. Many of these mechanisms are provided by the underlying Surf framework. Therefore, knowledge of Surf is considered useful for anyone wishing to implement substantial customizations. We can add custom dashlets, actions, page and site components, or custom themes. The content is implemented through a descriptor file, newContent get desk XML, and a template file, newContent get HTML FTL. Couple the newly created files inside Alfresco site web scripts in the shared extension blog demo folder. SurfBug allows for the ready identification of various components that make up a Surf page, as well as providing a visual indication of component location on the page. Information about each component is provided, including relevant file names, properties, IDs, and subcomponent details. Go to Share Service Index URL and enable the SurfBug in order to find the component we want to customize. In Alfresco, SurfBug is enabled or disabled through the SurfBug status web script. Now, if we click on the title bar, we see the region ID, the source ID, and the scope values. In this example, this should be title, user admin dashboard, and page. Create the blog demo XML file with this content and place it inside Shared Extension folder in Alfresco Site Data Extensions. Now, we have to restart Alfresco in order to get the script working, and we need to open Share Service Modules Deploy URL in order to deploy the module. If we enable the module through the Add feature, we see on our dashboard a brand new component above the title bar. In the upcoming video, we'll see how Shared Document Library web tier works. Hi all, and welcome to the second video of section 8. In this video, we'll talk about Shared Document Library web tier. In Alfresco 4, there is a new web script, Components Document Library Data, that requests data from the repository and processes the response based on a configurable set of evaluators before returning JSON data to browser. Now, the entire configuration is possible by simply modifying Shared Document Library config XML file. Status indicators are located in the indicators config container element with this structure. This template refers to the section of the document browse page under the file name. This area now can be customized with custom and/or node properties. In versions previous to 4, the Actions configuration was spread through a number of WebScript XML config files. From Alfresco 4, Actions are all now defined globally in the shared document library config XML file in the doclib actions config section. These customizations can be done via AMP, jar, or web extension folder mechanism, or a mixture of all three. Actions are also now grouped by view type instead of node state. Other properties can also be overridden, although it is not recommended doing so on other than simple properties like icons and labels. In the end, the doclib custom config section allows us to import CSS or JavaScript from custom resources directly in Share. We can use the document library web tier modifying one single file and highly customize almost everything inside Share. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to customize Share through repository tier. Hi all, and welcome to the third video of Section 8. In this video, we'll see how to customize Share through document library repository tier. A number of changes have been made to the repository tier data web scripts. In order to preserve existing customizations and third-party add-ons, a parallel set of data web scripts were developed rather than replacing the existing ones. The new set of web scripts, imaginatively labeled Document Library v2, are used by the shared document library now, but are no longer called directly. We still have an evaluator lib.js, but its job is greatly reduced to handling working copies and file and folder links and should no longer need to be overridden. These new web scripts can be found in the remote API project and have URLs starting with slingshot.doclib2. All node properties and aspects are returned by the data web scripts now. This will make it easier to display custom model properties and also key behaviors of marker aspects. Custom property decorators are employed to augment properties that by themselves are a little used to a user interface. Such examples include node-ref properties, tags and categories, and usernames, where we would like to display the full name. Lucene queries are no longer used for path-based navigation. Instead, calls are made directly to the file folder service via script node, where they can take advantage of the recent performance enhancements. There are 3 extension points supported by the repository data web scripts: document library custom response, property decorators, and permissions list. The first one appears inside metadata custom section of a JSON response. This extension is designed to return useful information not specific for any node. Most of the data web script work is now handled by the 2 Java classes, Alfresco repo JScript slingshot.doclib custom response and Alfresco repo JScript application script utils. The bean for returning the VTI server configuration is defined as this. The VTI server custom response class, which implements custom response, returns a serializable object, like linked hash map, that is serialized into the JSON response by the doclib web script. This extension point is designed to return useful information that is not specific to any node, for example, the presence of an optional module, whether a subsystem is active or not, etc. The other place the data web script may be extended is via the property decorator extension mechanism. These are utilized by the application script util class and allow properties such as node refs, usernames, and dates to be returned in a much more usable state to the web tier. For example, the share interface displays usernames using first and last name rather than just the username. By decorating the properties returned in the initial web script request, further requests are not necessary to obtain the missing data. The decorator properties define a map of short format QName to decorator implementation bean. Each of these decorators beans implements the property decorator interface and returns a serializable map via the decorate method. This map is then serialized into the JSON response for each node being returned by the web script request. The third place the data web script response may be extended is via the list of permissions that are returned for each node. These are defined via the user permissions property on the application script utils bean. The default set of permissions should not be reduced without fully understanding the impact on actions, indicators, and metadata evaluators already in use through Share. The document library repository tier is nothing else than a set of data web scripts mandatory for the web tier to get working. In the upcoming video, we see how to extend some repository actions. Hi all, and welcome to the fourth video of Section 8. In this section, we see how to extend share with custom actions using new Alfresco 4 configuration files. New actions can be specified within the share config custom XML. There are other parameters that is possible to override. In many Alfresco extension projects, you want to customize the document library in Alfresco Share, and quite often this involves adding new actions that can be applied to the content in the library. Document library actions do not use web scripts to implement their business logic. Instead, they hook into the client-side actions framework using custom JavaScript. Each action has a small 16x16 icon, one or more text labels, and configuration to hook them into the application. Most actions, by their nature, do something, and it's likely that they will make a RESTful call back to the repository to perform their work, which may require a custom web script there. Document library actions that should be visible in the document browse view are added via configuration in the share config custom XML file. Document library actions that should be visible in the document details view are also added via the share config custom XML file. The way custom document library actions are configured in version Alfresco 4 has been greatly improved. No longer do you have to override files belonging to the out-of-the-box web scripts document actions get and document list get. This makes it possible to have more than one extension project adding actions to the document library, which was previously a problem. As we extend the actions in Share, we can also register custom actions handlers. This is achieved using the new register action bubbling event message. In a very similar way to the custom action handler, we can use the register renderer bubbling event to produce custom outputs in Node properties. This example adds a new EXIF metadata renderer to produce a custom output. Just remember, we can only use out-of-the-box evaluators as parents to template from, and the config file is found in the web extension custom slingshot context XML. In the upcoming video, we'll talk about your Alfresco Node Locator service. Hi all, and welcome to the fifth and last video of Section 8. We'll talk about the Node Locator service. This service provides a way to look up one node from another. It looks up node locators by name, and out-of-the-box node locators are defined in a config file. The node locator context XML is a Spring config file that defines a base bean. This piece of code allows a named folder to be found. We can use the Java API in order to use the node locator service. The source parameter in getNode represents the starting point. In a form association control, this will be the node being edited. For create form, it will be the destination node. The example finds the primary parent of the source node and looks for a child folder with the given name. The main use of the node locator service is to determine where the form's association control should start when it is first displayed. In some scenarios, the picker may need to start in the root of the document library of a share site, or start in the folder where the node being edited is located. This example looks for a folder named example in the same folder as the node being edited. This section provides some help about understanding the node locator service and its use. It allows you to plug in custom start location strategies to form. This was the last video of the Section 8. In the upcoming section, we talk about share extensibility. Hi all, and welcome to the first video of Section 9. This section is all about share extensibility and powerful features that allows us to highly customize and extend share. This video will help us override the share login page that is managed in a different manner than Alfresco Explorer default login. First of all, we need to modify the already seen share config custom.xml file in Alfresco web extension directory. Then, we should create an XML like this in the Alfresco SciData Pages directory. Please add the following code in the file we just created. Now, Create another file, also called as the previous one, and move it to the Alfresco SciData template instances. Please add the following code in the file we just created. In the end, create the free market template of our new login page and move it to Alfresco templates demo. Please add the following code in the file we just created. Restart Alfresco and go to your share URL. You'll be prompted with the new login page. In this way, we can also import any CSS file we want in our custom share login page and style it as well. In the upcoming video, we talked about extending share using jar packages. Hi all, and welcome to the second video of section 9. We see how to extend share using a jar package file. First of all, we need to ensure that our Tomcat instance has the shared lib folder. Since version 6, as a matter of fact, Tomcat no longer provides this folder as default, specifically because it's problematic from a web of isolation perspective. This can be changed via conf Catalina properties file. Open the file and add the following, if not there, to shared loader property. So it should look something like this. Then, for demonstration purposes, in our favorite IDE, we're going to create a new project with this simple example and build a jar. You will need to have Eclipse installed, and this tutorial assumes you have some familiarity with using Eclipse. A simple and effective way to add content to an Alfresco share page is to create content as a web script and then add a new subcomponent to an existing component on the page. In the Package Explorer, right-click on the test jar project folder and create a new folder called config. In the config Alfresco site data site web script, create a new description file XML for the web script called new content get desk that contains the following content and save it. In the same folder, site web scripts, create a new template file called new content.get.html.ftl that contains the following content and save it. Right-click on the test jar project folder and create a new XML file called build.xml. This will contain an end script for packaging up and deploying the project. Add the following content to your end script. The main purpose of this end script is to create a jar file and deploy it. Everything below the config folder is included in the jar file. The deploy target simply copies the jar file to Tomcat Web Apps Share WebInf lib directory of your Alfresco installation. Now, run the build file by right-clicking on it and selecting Run As and Build. Check the Eclipse console for messages and you should see Build Successful. Restart the application server and open a browser at the share URL, so share service index. Now, with SurfBug activated, we've covered this in the last section, we should look at the footer in the share dashboard to catch the region ID, source ID and scope values. In the Eclipse Package Explorer, in the Alfresco SciData Extensions folder, create a new extension file called extensionmodules.xml that contains the following. Rebuild the jar file so that the extension file is included. You can do this by right-clicking on your build XML file and selecting Run As and Build. This will build and deploy the new jar file. The extension module needs to be deployed before it will be visible. Module deployment is a new feature in Alfresco 4 that is achieved through a web script found at Share, Page, Modules, Deploy. Select New Content module and click Add to move it into the deployed modules list. Click Apply Changes. Now in Share we should be able to see the content from the new web script displayed just above the footer. This is a simple example of deploying some custom extensions to Share. In the upcoming video, we see how to customize JavaScript controllers. Hi all, and welcome to the third video of section 9. In this video, we see how to customize JavaScript controllers. The extension module customizations elements can be used to override behavior of components. In this example, we will override the WebView behavior. We have to find the ID of the WebView. In order to achieve this, we need to enable surfbug. We've seen how to do it in the previous section, and then add the WebView in our dashboard. Having identified that the dashlet is rendered by the web script using the controller WebView.get.js. In the Alfresco components dashlets package, you can define a new module with a customization to apply to it. In the folder WebScripts Tutorials Customization, create a file called WebView.get.js. Once we build the script and restart the application server, we would see in our dashboard that our WebView dashlet has opened directly the www.alfresco.com page. The custom JavaScript is executed after the original. The original one sets up an initial model which the default FreeMarker template uses to render content. In the upcoming video, we'll see how to customize FreeMarker templates. Hi all, and welcome to the fourth video of section 9. This video will explain how to add content to a page using the region directive extension. You will need to identify the template file being used to display the page. Once this file has been identified using surfbug, you can create customization that uses the region directive to insert content, replace content, or remove content. The region directive helps identify the content in share and customize or extend specific parts of the front-end interface. In our example, let's say the footer. The template type property is org alfresco dashboard. We need to extend the org alfresco package and the dashboard FTL file, so update the extension modules XML. In the folder structure Alfresco templates tutorials customization, as in the previous video, create the dashboard FTL file. Then, create a new folder named Components under Config Alfresco Site Data. We should place a new file called Global Additional Content.xml. In Config Alfresco Site Web Scripts New Content Get HTML FTL, add this code. Once built and restarted, we should see the customizations on the footer area. If we want to test out other customization operations, we should simply update the dashboard FTL file with these lines of code. FreeMarker extensibility directives can be manipulated through 4 supported actions: remove, replace, before and after. In the upcoming video, we see how to create an extension module. Hi all, and welcome to the fifth and last video of section 9. We'll cover the creation of an extension module in order to become more familiar with the entire share extensibility concept. New to Alfresco 4, advanced components can be extended to add, remove, and modify the content within a component, have a component display different content dynamically based on request information, such as a site being accessed or the current user, reorder existing subcomponents. Here is a detailed link about advanced component configuration in Share. As always, we should find the component to extend with surfbug. Create the UI script as follows inside Tomcat Shared Classes Alfresco Site Data Extensions Hello World extension.xml. Then, we should create a FreeMarker template and the descriptor file as these lines of code. Once deployed, we should have something similar to this. With this tutorial, we finished the last section.